My name is Sloane Reeves, and before I begin, I want you to know something. If you have ever stood on a stage, in a room, or even in the corner of your own home, waiting for people who promised they would show up, only to realize they never will, then this story might feel uncomfortably familiar. And if anything in my voice resonates with your own past, then leave a comment, share your experience, and remember to subscribe. Because somewhere out there, someone needs your story to survive theirs. Now, let me take you back to the moment everything in my life cracked open. I was 17, standing backstage at the state science fair finals. My hands were shaking, not because I doubted my work, but because I truly believed foolishly that this time, my parents would be there. For months, they had promised, "Yes, Sloane, we'll be there. This is your big moment." But promises from my family were always like thin glass, clear enough to see hope through them, fragile enough to break at the slightest pressure. I kept glancing toward the double doors at the back of the auditorium. Every time they opened, I imagined it would be my mother's anxious face or my father's stiff nod of approval. It never was. What hurts the most is not that they forgot. It is that they remembered and chose not to come anyway. Later, I would overhear the truth. My father simply did not think it would matter. And my mother said she did not want to sit through another one of Sloane's little projects. It was the first time I understood. Some people love you in theory, but never in practice. When they called my name, I stepped onto the stage alone. The lights were too bright. I could not see the crowd, but I could feel the emptiness where my family should have been. Still, I presented my project with every breath in me. It was a prototype model predicting emotional stress patterns using simple algorithms. Primitive, yes, almost childish. But it was the seed of something my life would eventually grow around. When they announced the awards, I won first place. People clapped. Cameras flashed. My teacher hugged me. And the two seats reserved in the front row for Mr. and Mrs. Reeves stayed empty, untouched, cold. That night, I walked home alone. My trophy felt heavier than it should have. Success without witnesses is a quiet kind of heartbreak. Growing up, I was the child who felt everything too deeply, cried too loudly, dreamed too big, and questioned too much. Every emotion I had was labeled dramatic, ridiculous, or my father's favorite word, exaggeration. Whenever I tried to express pain, my mother would sigh and say, "Sloane, stop being so sensitive." Whenever I tried to talk about stress, my father would mutter, "There is nothing wrong with you. Toughen up." So, I learned to keep my feelings inside. I learned to cry quietly, behind locked doors. I learned to pretend I was fine, until even I almost believed it. But the thing about feelings is that they always find a way out. For me, that escape became coding. I got my first laptop from a yard sale. The keyboard was missing the F key, and the screen had a crack shaped like a lightning bolt. But it worked. At night, while my parents slept, I would stay up learning to write tiny programs. First games, then calculators, then little emotional prediction models, far more advanced than what I made at 17. It felt like talking to something that finally talked back. I wanted to build a system that could read emotions, understand distress, notice invisible pain. Something I wished someone had done for me. But in my house, dreams were not something you pursued. They were something you apologized for. So I kept building quietly, secretly. The day everything shattered was the day of my college scholarship ceremony. It was the biggest moment in my life up until then, a full scholarship for years, something I had fought for every single night while my parents slept, unaware of the battles I was waging. They promised to be there. But 30 minutes before the ceremony, my father texted, "We cannot make it. Your sister needs help with her dance recital." A recital. A performance she had every weekend. A performance that was recorded. A performance that could have been skipped. My ceremony could not be. But they chose her anyway. I remember staring at the message, breath frozen in my throat. It was not new pain. It was simply deeper proof of a truth I had pretended not to see. They would always show up for my sister. And never for me. That night, when my name was called, I received my scholarship alone. Again. The applause felt hollow. The congratulations felt distant. And I realized something. If my family could not see my worth, I would build a life so bright the world would see it for them. This is the part of the story people relate to the most. Not the triumphs, not the success, but the moment you finally decide that your pain cannot be the reason you stop. It has to become the reason you start. Before I go further, if you have ever felt invisible in your own home, ignored by the people who are supposed to cheer the loudest, then let me know in the comments. Your voice deserves to be heard somewhere, even if that somewhere is here. Now, let me take you into the years that followed. The years where silence became survival, and survival became obsession, and obsession became the first blueprint of a $92 million empire. This is where the world that forgot me would learn my name. This is where the girl with the cracked laptop would build a company that would one day appear on the front page of Forbes. And this is where my family, who never once showed up, would suddenly remember I existed. There are years in a person's life that feel like entire lifetimes folded inside them. Years where nothing makes sense on the surface, but in hindsight you realize those were the years that sharpened you, carved away everything weak, until only the part of you that refused to die remained. My 20s were exactly that. They did not begin with clarity or confidence or some dramatic epiphany. They began with a cramped apartment above a laundromat, a mattress on the floor, and a dream so fragile I was afraid to speak it aloud. But dreams do not need permission to exist. They only need space. So I gave mine everything. I was 22 when the idea began to take shape. A platform that could read emotional patterns, detect stress spirals, and offer personalized support, almost like a digital guardian for anyone who felt unheard. Not therapy. Not medication. Not some sterile chatbot that spat out generic responses. Something human. Something intuitive. Something I wished I had when I was drowning alone in my bedroom as a child. The name came effortlessly. LucentMind. A mind illuminated. But building LucentMind was nothing like naming it. I worked 2 jobs, one as a barista, one as a night receptionist at a small co-working space. Both paid me just enough for groceries, Wi-Fi, and electricity. The rest of my time, every remaining hour, went into coding. I would come home at 3 in the morning, open my cracked laptop, and write line after line after line. Most nights, I worked until the sun rose. On the best nights, the code worked. On most nights, it crashed and mocked me in silence.
Still, I kept going. No one asked me to. No one expected me to.
No one believed I could. And maybe that is exactly why I did. Burnout is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is a slow erosion of self, a quiet dimming of the light inside you. At 24, my light nearly went out. One night, while working on a major update for emotional pattern recognition, I began to feel dizzy. My chest tightened. My breath became shallow, sharp, unfamiliar. I thought I was dying.
It was a panic attack.
My first. My worst. I remember gripping the edge of my desk, whispering,
"Not now. Not now.
Please, not now." As if begging my own body to stay alive long enough to run one more test. But my body had already decided. I collapsed. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. A nurse stood beside me. Her expression was soft, almost pitying. "You cannot work like this," she said gently. "You are burning yourself alive from the inside." I laughed. Quietly.
Brokenly.
I wanted to tell her that for some people, burning is the only way to stay warm. When I checked my phone, I saw no missed calls from my family. No messages. No concern. I was unsurprised. I was always the daughter who handled everything alone. And I always would be. 6 months later, after endless testing, debugging, and restructuring, LucentMind finally worked. Really worked. The platform detected emotional spirals with startling accuracy, reading microshifts in language patterns, sleep cycles, and behavioral cues. It offered personalized exercises, step-by-step grounding methods, even guided conversations. Not therapy. Not a diagnosis. Just a hand in the dark. The hand I never had. I launched a small beta program with 50 users. Within 3 days, 300 more signed up. Within 2 weeks, over 2,000. Their messages changed me. "Your platform helped me through a panic attack." I finally feel understood. This app saved my life last night. I would cry reading those. Not because I was sad, but because I realized I had built something my younger self would have clung to like a lifeline. I was giving others the safety I never received. For the first time, I felt something I had never felt before. Purpose. With momentum growing, I needed help funding, partnerships, something. And that is when I made my first critical mistake. I trusted the wrong person. His name was Elias Ward, a local entrepreneur with a charming smile and an ego disguised as confidence. He saw potential in LucentMind, or rather, potential he could take advantage of. At first, he offered advice, then connections. Then he wanted to help me pitch to investors. I should have walked away the moment he referred to LucentMind as our project, without ever lifting a finger. But I was naive, hopeful, tired of carrying everything alone. So I let him in. He scheduled a meeting with a prominent angel investor and insisted on presenting the pitch himself, arguing that people take men more seriously in tech. That should have been the moment I recognized his intentions. But when you are desperate to be believed in, you will mistake manipulation for support. During the meeting, he presented LucentMind as his idea, his platform, his creation. He used my research, my code, my design, my story, and he erased me completely. I sat there frozen, listening as he painted himself as the visionary behind everything I had bled for. The investor shook his hand. The deal was offered. Elias accepted on the spot. Without me, the ride home felt unreal. My chest hurt, not from panic, but from the sharp, surgical pain of betrayal. I had been abandoned often, but being erased was worse. For the first time since childhood, I felt the old voice inside me whisper, "Maybe your parents were right. Maybe you are not enough. Maybe you never will be." I considered ending LucentMind, deleting everything, walking away. But then I opened my email. There was a message from a user in the beta program. "I do not know who you are, but your platform helped me through the worst night of my life.
Please never stop building this.
Some of us need it more than you know." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I made a decision. No one would ever erase me again. Not my parents. Not Elias. Not anyone. LucentMind was mine. Its purpose came from my pain. Its strength came from my loneliness. Its voice came from the silence I had lived in my whole life. I spent the next 72 hours rewriting every major component of the platform. I reclaimed everything he had tried to steal. And then I cut him out without a word. 3 months later, LucentMind caught the attention of a women-led venture firm. They reached out after reading user testimonies, offering me seed funding. Not because of a pitch. Not because of a man standing beside me. Not because of my family name. Because of my work. Because of me. The day I signed the contract, I sat alone on my balcony, listening to the city hum beneath me, and whispered into the night, "This is only the beginning." And it was. But success has a strange way of summoning ghosts. And the biggest ghost of all was still watching from the shadows. Success does not arrive with a trumpet. It arrives quietly, like dawn slipping through the blinds. You do not realize the world has changed until you look around, and everything is brighter. LucentMind grew faster than I could comprehend. Within a year, we expanded from a small seed-funded startup to a full-scale company serving tens of thousands of users. Within 2 years, we were onboarding universities, corporate wellness programs, and women's shelters. Within 3, we were no longer an experimental project. We were a movement, and people were finally paying attention. Except, of course, my family.
They knew where I lived.
They knew what I was building. They knew who I was becoming. But silence was their only language. The real turning point came during a conference in Seattle. I had been invited to speak about mental health technology for young women, a topic I had lived, breathed, and bled for. Standing on that stage felt different from all the others. This time, I was not the lonely girl staring at empty chairs. This time, the room was full. People leaned in. They listened. They cared. After my talk, a journalist approached me. We are preparing a feature on disruptive mental health technology. Could we possibly include LucentMind? I nodded. Polite.
Come.
Inside, I was shaking. But nothing could have prepared me for what came next. 2 months later, my phone began vibrating nonstop. Emails, messages, mentions, calls from people I had not spoken to in years. Confused, I opened the first notification. Forbes, the tech visionary who is redefining emotional wellness for women. LucentMind valuation reaches $92 million. For a long moment, I could not breathe. There it was. My life's work. My pain, rewritten into purpose. My loneliness, transformed into impact. $92 million. A number so large it did not feel real. I stared at the headline as if it might vanish. People congratulated me. Investors requested meetings. Universities offered collaborations. Women wrote to me, thanking me for building something that understood them when no one else could. And for the first time in my life, I felt indisputably visible. But success has an echo. And that echo found its way into my past. It arrived at 8:14 in the morning. I was sitting in my kitchen, sipping tea, still overwhelmed by the Forbes article, when my phone lit up with a name I had not seen in months.
Dad.
My hands trembled. Slowly, carefully, I opened the message. Congratulations, Sloane. Your mother and I are very proud. We always knew you were capable of great things. Let us know when we can meet. We would love to celebrate together. I read it once.
Twice.
3 times. A laugh escaped my throat.
Soft.
Disbelieving. Sharp as broken glass. They always knew. They were proud. They wanted to celebrate. Where were they when I worked 3 jobs? Where were they when I collapsed alone in my apartment? Where were they when I cried over stolen dreams, rewritten code, and nights so dark I did not know if dawn still existed? Where were they every time I stood in a room waiting for them to show up? The irony was almost poetic. They had not shown up for my biggest moments. But the moment Forbes did, suddenly they remembered me. For several minutes, I considered ignoring the message entirely. But silence had been my family's weapon for years. I would not use it. I wanted closure, not revenge, not validation, just truth. So, I agreed to meet them. We chose a small cafe near my office. Neutral ground. The day of the meeting, my heart felt strangely steady. Not anxious, not afraid, simply ready. When I walked in, my parents were already seated. My mother stood first, arms half open, as if waiting to embrace someone she had never embraced before. Sloane, sweetheart, look at you, she said breathlessly. I knew you would make it. I sat down without responding. My father cleared his throat, offering a stiff smile. You have built something impressive, he said. You should be proud of yourself. I met his eyes.
Calm. Steady.
Years of unspoken hurt rising like a tide inside me. Thank you, I said quietly. But why now? My father blinked. What do you mean? I mean, why did it take a $92 million valuation for the two of you to call me? Why not when I won the science fair? Why not when I earned my scholarship? Why not when I collapsed alone in the hospital? Why now? Silence spread across the table like a shadow. My mother looked away. My father sighed. We were busy, Sloane. You know how life gets. No, I said. I know how you chose. He stiffened. I am your father. You should show some respect. I leaned back in my chair, the truth finally falling into place. I've spent my entire life respecting people who never showed up for me, and I will not do it anymore. Their faces shifted shock, confusion, a flicker of guilt that extinguished as quickly as it appeared. My mother whispered, "We only want to reconnect." And I believed her, but not for the reasons she hoped. They wanted to reconnect with the woman the world was applauding, not the girl they had left behind. I stood. Reconnect with your pride, I said softly, but not with me. Their mouths parted, but no words came. It was strange. The moment I had imagined my entire life standing tall, Reclaiming the power they once held over me did not feel like triumph. It felt like peace. I walked out of the cafe. My shoulders felt lighter. My breath deeper. For the first time, I was free. That night, I returned to my office. My team was gathered around the conference table, excitedly discussing new features, partnerships, and the influx of messages from women around the world. They looked at me not as someone who needed approval, not as someone who had to beg to be seen. They looked at me as someone who mattered, as someone who had built something meaningful, something powerful, something real. And when I looked at the city's skyline through the window, golden light reflecting off the glass towers, I felt an overwhelming truth settle quietly inside me. I did not succeed despite my pain. I succeeded because of it. Pain had been the blueprint. Loneliness had been the foundation. And resilience had been the architect. I whispered to myself. They did not show up for my biggest moment, but I showed up for myself. And that was enough. It had always been enough. If you heard pieces of yourself in my story, if you have ever been overlooked, dismissed, or underestimated, then let me remind you, your value does not come from who applauds you. It comes from who you become when no one is watching. And if you are still in the dark part of your story, keep going. Your dawn is coming. If this story resonated with you, leave a comment, share your own journey, tap the like button, and subscribe for more stories like this. You never know who needs to hear what you have survived.